So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the European Commission's press room. Thank you also for following us live on Europe by satellite. Today is Wednesday, 21st of June. Let me start with updates regarding the President's activities. As you know, the President is at the Ukraine Recovery Conference in London right now. She gave a keynote speech there at this conference this morning. In particular, the President presented the proposed new facility for Ukraine, which would ensure support for the country until 2027, and it would ensure that reform efforts are matching investments on Ukraine's path towards the European Union. The full speech of the President delivered in London is, of course, on the press corner. Ensuite, demain, la présidente sera...
Tomorrow, the President will be in Paris to take part in a summit for a new financial pact, new global financial pact. This is organised by the French President, Emmanuel Macron. She'll take part in a round table, a new method of partnership for green growth. The President's speech will be directly available on EBS around midday, and then it will be on EBS Plus after that. To be absolutely clear, since it's around lunchtime, noon, it might interfere with our midday briefing timelines, so we'll keep you updated as to any putative time changes.
Welcome to our press room, a group of visitors. First of all, a group of spokespeople from Czech institutions. I see you there at the back of the room. Very, very happy to see you. And a group of journalists from Gulf countries. I see you there as well in the middle. Very good to see you too. I hope you find our midday briefing interesting and lively, as it always or as it usually is. And with that, I can already open the discussion to your questions. Yes, go ahead, Jose.
Hi, Dana. I have a question on something that happened very recently in Spain. In a little town in Valencia, there's a new government between the Conservatives and the far right, and in this coalition agreement, they have decided to prohibit the display of LGBT flags in official buildings and also prohibit the demonstrations against gender-based violence. They say that the demonstrations need to be against violence in general, not gender-based. So what's your reaction to that? Do you think these actions are compatible with the Charter of Fundamental Rights? And do you think this might be grounds for an infringement procedure or the withholding of European funds? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Well, what can I say? You know our position on equality, on LGBTIQ matters. I of course, invite Christian to provide you an answer. I'm not sure how much we can go into the details of a specific case, but Christian, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Jorge, thanks, Dana. Thanks for your question. We are aware of the media reports. As you know, we do not comment on announcements, and given this relates to local administrations, we would also first of all, of course, point it to the authorities of the member state. Having said that, more generally, as Dana already said, let me remind you that the Commission has a very clear stance on LGBTIQ equality, which we have set out in our LGBTIQ equality strategy, and also, of course, on protecting women and girls from violence. We have also always been clear that peaceful demonstrations are a fundamental right in all democratic countries.
All right, thank you, Christian. Any other questions on this matter? David, it's about this? Yes? Then go ahead.
Oui, merci. C'est pas...
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
Même sujet, disons.
It's not about Spain, it's about Italy, the same subject, though.
Go ahead.
Merci. C'est Laura de Europa Press.
Yes, I'm Laura from Europa Press. I wonder if you're aware of what's been published in the press, but have you been in contact with local authorities in general in the country to have information about measures that are being taken?
Comme je dis, nous...
Well, as I've said, we saw reports in the press.
Oui. Laisse-moi finir.
Okay, if I could finish. But we haven't had any specific context on this subject. But of course, Christian will check into this, and if there's any more information, you'll hear about it.
Oui, merci. C'est à propos de...
Okay, thanks. A prosecutor in Italy, in Padova to be precise, has made a decision or ruling requiring that the local authorities, the commune of Padova, ensure transcription of children born to same-sex parents, that this be cancelled, that they stop registering those births, basically, if they're born to same-sex parents, because there was either two same-sex parents, or because it was surrogate parenthood somewhere along the line. Are you aware of this? And it's not entirely the first time this happens in Italy. There was a circular sent out by the Home Ministry, the Interior Ministry of Italy, which was sent to all prefects and commune authorities across Italy. This was sent a few months ago on this topic. Have you raised this point in discussion with Italian authorities, or do you intend to wait and see? It's a breach of rights, not only the rights of the child and of the child's parents, even if they are same-sex parents, but it's also an attack on free movement. Thank you, David. Now, I have to say I'm not personally aware of those cases. I'll check whether anything needs to be said. Usually, we don't comment on individual cases, as you know. More generally, I can recall our position on this, on parental rights more broadly, which includes cross-border cases involving different member states. If one is a parent and recognized as such in one member state, other member states must recognize that parenthood, and the decision has to be complied with. But family law is national competence, of course. But anyway, I'll check back on this if you like. David, is this a follow-up you're asking for?
I will switch to English. Because there is a ruling by the European Court of Justice in 2021, December, if I remember well, on a case in Bulgaria, stating that basically your position, I mean, it's an issue of freedom of movement and rights and fundamental rights, the Charter of Fundamental Rights and so on. But the problem in Italy is that there is also a ruling by the Corte di Cassazione, which is the High Court, not the constitutional one, but the High Court, which is used by the by the government, ruling saying that there are public order reasons why a child born with the GPA cannot be registered, and the parenthood cannot be registered in Italy. What law should apply? What ruling should apply in Italy? The European Court ruling or the national one? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David, for the question. I'm I'm afraid I'll not be able to give a legal seminar now, impromptu, in the press room, explaining exactly the legal context and especially not commenting on the individual case. But I'm happy, as I said, to look into this in a bit more detail and see if we can give you some more elements.
Yeah, about the specificities of Padua, what you raised. Yes, Diego, I think it's about the same matter. Sorry, it was Diego first, Mose. Then I will come back to you.
Okay, it works now. Merci, Dana. Non, c'est pour revenir sur...
Well, coming back to the Spanish issue. Well, looking at the political level, we know that the Vice President of the European Commission, Mr. Chinas, has close contacts with the Spanish Popular Party, People's Party. Did he say that he wasn't really a fan of the atmosphere within that party, since it has contacts with the far right? Have there been any contacts between Mr. Chinas and the leadership of the Spanish People's Party, indicating that they shouldn't head in that direction? Thank you for your question, Diego. This gives me an opportunity to give you a very predictable answer. We're here to talk about the decisions and the policies of the Commission. We're not here to talk about any political contacts on the part of members of the Commission. As you know, there are also politicians, and some of them are members of political parties, so they may have political contacts, but we absolutely are not in any position to comment about possible contacts between commissioners and political parties or members of governments. Of course, we're at your disposal to talk about policy in this area. So we've taken note of the question we were asked concerning the situation in Spain. Christian is going to look into this and see whether there's any further information he can provide, because like you, we've read about this in the press, but we have nothing more to add today.
Italy or about Spain or in general? Go ahead. Go ahead, Mose, yes.
Thanks, Dana. Yes, this is very much related to the first question you got about parent rights in Italy and all over Europe, because, as I asked before, we know that the Commission has proposed a new regulation on the recognition, European recognition of parenthood, which will solve this problem, which David raised about, let's say, different decisions by national Supreme Courts and European case law. Because according to that proposal, I mean, if EU countries recognize parenthood also for same-sex parents, also children born in surrogacy, then other countries, EU countries, would have to recognize it. The question is that let's say, legislation seems to be stuck in the Council because of objections by, for example, Hungary and Poland, and also the Swedish EU presidency, which now is approaching its end, didn't do anything to promote it. And the question is whether the Spanish presidency will do anything about it. Do you have any news about that regulation? I mean, will it take so long time for it for a decision?
Thank you.
Well, I think this is probably rather a question for the Council, for the current or incoming presidency. I mean, we have made a proposal which we think is an important one for the benefits of the children in the first place, which is indeed, as you have also mentioned here, and David has mentioned, related to free movement. Member states already must recognize. So to ensure that member states must recognize parenthood as established in another member states, and they already must do this in the context of rights derived from union law. So this is now in negotiations. There is the normal process between the co-legislators, And as I said, I would invite you to, if you want to know how the next presidency is intending to take the proposal forward, I would invite you to reach out to the presidency, to the council.
Thank you. Any more questions on this matter? Before we change subjects, because I see also a few hands up in the system wanting to ask other questions. Is it about this? No. So then allow me to ask if you have other questions for Christian, as he's on stage now, on other matters that he covers. Virginie, vas-y. On va tenter pour voir si ta question est là-dessus, ou sur un sujet couvert par Christian.
Moi, c'est sur le rapport oral.
It's about the Commission's report this morning on Ukraine. The candidacy status, the 7 conditions from last June. What's the state of play? Okay, fair enough. You can go ahead with that. I don't think there are any questions for Christian. Or we'll just wait until he swaps with Alan to answer your particular point.
Vas-y, Virginie, tu peux y aller.
Okay, shoot, Virginie. Well, I think I actually heard the question. I think it was about the oral update. I can't even say update in French as a speaker, but anyway, what I can say that Commissioner Verret is going to make an oral briefing state of play report to Council tomorrow. This will be during the informal General Affairs Council to be held in Stockholm tomorrow. This will be a status and progress report regarding Moldova, Georgia and Ukraine, in line with the priorities and steps identified by Commission opinions on their respective applications to join the EU. Concerning all those 3 countries I've said, the Commissioner will also be taking part in the press conference, and that will be held after the GAC in the afternoon tomorrow. Thank you very much. Virginie, you'll probably get more details there from the Commissioner directly once information has been given to the Member States on that. You're asking for a follow-up. Go ahead, Virginie.
Est-ce que Virginie est encore connectée?
Are you still connected? Yes, we can hear you and see you now. But I understood that there's already been a report to COREPER this morning. As I understand it, 2 of the 7 conditions have been fulfilled. I would have liked to know a wee bit more about, given, I think it's something to do with media interests and particular vested interests, and something to do with justice-related aspects. Can you give us any more details?
Merci beaucoup pour...
Thank you for that question, Virginie. You would have been able to listen to the President's speech that she gave in London. That's already happened. She's already explained that progress has taken place in the field of legal reforms of the judiciary and also on combating corruption. She also referred to new media law and minority-related laws. I know you would like to have even more details, but I'm afraid you have to show understanding for us too. It's the Commissioner that makes the formal presentation to Council tomorrow, and after that, at the press conference, which I'm sure you'll be able to follow, he will be at liberty to give more information. Thank you very much. Any more questions for Anna on this? Is it for Anna? Stephen? Yeah, go ahead.
Je suis pas 100% sûr, mais ça...
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but this concerns Ukrainian prisoners of war who were transferred to Hungary, and I was wondering if you were aware of the situation and if you could comment on this. Apparently, the families of the prisoners don't have access to them. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. This wouldn't be for Anna, but before I give the floor to Peter to answer this question, I'll see if there are any other questions for Anna. as long as she's here, concerning the subjects we've already discussed. So she doesn't have to come back up. I don't see any further questions, so yes, thank you, Anna.
Peter.
Bonjour Stéphane, merci pour la...
Thank you, Stefan, and thank you for the question. Yes, Russia, as a party to the conflict, has international obligations when it comes to prisoners of war. These obligations are defined in the Geneva Convention. That's one thing. But now, concerning the specific situation of these Ukrainian prisoners of war and our relations with Hungary, we've heard that this situation was not coordinated with Ukraine. This should have happened. We should have the agreement of Ukraine because these are mainly Ukrainian citizens. Now it's up to the Hungarian authorities to explain the details of this case, the role it's played in the liberation of these Ukrainian citizens from Russia. And the Hungarian authorities will have to explain to the Ukrainian partner what exactly happened, and also to explain how this situation was managed of these Ukrainian POWs on Hungarian territory. So we're waiting for follow-up from the Hungarian authorities. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Tom.
Thank you. Tom, please.
Et qu'est-ce qu'ils ont dit, les autorités?
What did the Hungarian authorities have to say about this?
Je suis ici comme...
Well, I'm the spokesperson for the European Commission. I can't speak for the Hungarian authorities. You'll have to ask the Hungarian authorities for their comments and as appropriate.
Tom, vas-y. Question de suivi.
Follow up from Tom. No, but sorry, they haven't replied, have they? Or are you saying you don't want to say what they said to you if they did reply?
C'est pas mon rôle.
It's not my role to comment or to share positions expressed by the authorities of member states or any member state. For us, it's important to say what our position, and we do feel that this was not coordinated and managed in coordination with Ukraine. These are first and foremost issues for Ukraine. They are Ukrainian citizens. Hungary, in these dealings, managing the situation of these freed POWs, need to give explanation to the authorities in Ukraine, share information, coordinate with Ukraine. We as EU are going to contact the Hungarian authorities for more detailed information and for following up that information. So we are going to ask, Tom, but we do not ourselves have, we are going to. That's what Peter was saying. We are going to. We haven't yet received any comments. We're going to ask.
Yes, Peter. The foreign minister of Hungary has said that it wasn't us. So he gave his explanation publicly. So now it's difficult for us to lend any credibility to what the Hungarian authorities have said. So what do you think about this public explanation? Can you accept that or not? And what will the follow-up be? Because currently there's an EU member state who's holding POWs hostage on behalf of Russia. So we're talking about follow-up. Excuse me, but here we have a member state of the European Union who's holding Ukrainian prisoners of war hostage. They've been transferred from Russia. Can you explain exactly what this follow-up is going to be? Well, thank you, David. As I said, it's up to the Hungarian authorities to explain the whole situation to the Ukrainian partners. That's a duty because they're Ukrainian citizens, and we, as the European Commission, are working with the facts that we have. The fact is that this situation was not coordinated with the Ukrainians, and what we can say now is that we're going to ask the Hungarian authorities for explanations, for information, and then we'll see what sort of follow-up is necessary in this situation. But first, there has to be some contact between Hungary and Ukraine because these are Ukrainian citizens. Thank you. I see there's one more question in the chat on this subject.
For Wanda, let's try to get her on the line.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, the Hungarian foreign minister said that they had absolutely nothing to do with this matter because they weren't involved in this operation. It was an operation of religious, the Orthodox and the civil community. So, what do you exactly expect from the Hungarian government to explain if they weren't involved in the operation?
And I will repeat, it is very important that the relevant Hungarian authorities involved in this case and active in this case explain to their Ukrainian counterparts about what happened, how it happened, what was the role of Hungary, who was involved, who was not involved, how this was managed in relation to Ukraine, which is the country whose citizens have been taken prisoners of war by the aggressors, by Russia. And then there was someone from Hungary going to discuss the liberation of these people and their transfer to Hungary. So it's first, in the first place, is something for the Ukraine to be completely informed about. And this has to be done by the relevant Hungarian counterpart. Second, I said that we will demand and we will ask the Hungarian authorities, I didn't say government, I said authorities, or whoever might have been involved in this, for more information about what happened, how it happened, and for potential follow-up in this case, if necessary.
Thank you. I think Mose has a question about this.
Microphone.
Said Pete, of course, Hungary has a lot of explanation to do to Ukraine, but I wonder, let's say, if it would be, let's say, in the context of a kind of exchange of war prisoners, I suppose it would be legitimate by them to help to achieve such an exchange. So I suppose that should be the relevant question also for European Commission to ask Hungary if they try to exchange the prisoners. Otherwise, why would they allow Russia to transfer Ukrainian war prisoners to their territory, right?
Thank you very much for your question, Mose. We will not get ahead of ourselves by trying to anticipate answers to questions in this situation. I think Peter has clearly explained how we see the situation, the fact that we are seeking answers, and that depending on the answers from the relevant authorities, we are going to assess to see what could be the follow-up. But there is nothing we can anticipate at this stage as possible answers to questions and possible follow-up questions. Tom, you have one last question about this.
I'd just like to know, how did you find out about this? Through media, from Ukraine, or how did you find out about this? You do seem to have been informed. You know that there are Ukrainian prisoners in Hungary. Where did you learn this? Because we are in communication with our Ukrainian partners in the context of the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine. Our first partners and interlocutors are, of course, the government of Ukraine.
Yes, Wanda, apologies, you have a follow-up question which I didn't see before, so go ahead.
Just to make it clear, were there any answers to the EU's question from the Hungarian government so far?
Again, I said that we will reach out to Hungarian authorities for more information and possible follow-up. We will reach out. Because again, it's first of all for the Hungarian authorities, for Hungary to inform and to coordinate and to discuss with their Ukrainian counterparts.
Thank you, Peter. Any other questions for Peter? On other topics today? Yes, go ahead. You've been waiting for a long time.
Ukrainian media, Channel 24, Spinant. Actually, my question is about 11th package of sanctions. Yesterday, Steinmeier said that the EU will cooperate with Kazakhstan to prevent avoids of Western sanctions imposed on Russia. Can you comment on this? And what is the current stage of 11th package of sanctions against Russia? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. So we have proposed this 11th package of sanction, I think it was last month. Discussions have continued among the member states in Council, and we hope, obviously, that an agreement on it can be reached very rapidly, because we believe that this 11th package of sanctions is very important. It will bring on the table important tools to avoid circumvention and to give our sanctions more teeth, to cut even deeper into Russia's war machine. So obviously our hope is that an agreement can be found very, very rapidly. But we have no additional information because, as you know, this is being dealt now. The ball is now in the part of the Council, which is another institution. But I hope we'll have good news soon. Any other questions for Peter? Yes, Nawab.
This is on another region. Peter, what is your reaction to the latest situation in the occupied West Bank, where reportedly violence seems to continue and several Palestinians and Israelis have been killed? Thank you.
Thank you, Nawab. Unfortunately, indeed, we are seeing yet another uptick in violence. So the deadly cycle of violence continues despite repeated calls by the European Union and international partners on both on the Israeli and Palestinian sides to de-escalate, to take steps to prevent this perpetual cycle of violence. We've seen yesterday a terror attack near the illegal settlement Eli in the occupied West Bank. Subsequently, in the next few hours, we have seen indiscriminate settlers' violence against Palestinian civilians. We issued a statement this morning condemning firmly the terror attacks from yesterday against the settlers. And in the same way, we are condemning the outbreak of settlers' violence last night, which resulted in unacceptable, indiscriminate violence against Palestinian civilians and the destruction of Palestinian property. And the European Union recalls yet again that Israel has the obligation to ensure the protection of civilians in the occupied territory. And if I can recall the joint declaration by 27 member states from the beginnings of March, where they were addressing this ongoing spiral of violence and expressing deep concern by the European Union about the increasing violence and extremism. And apart from condemning the continued terrorist attacks against Israeli civilians, the 27 member states were also clear in restating that Israel must stop settlers' violence and prevent settlers' violence, and also ensure that the perpetrators of settlers' violence are held accountable. You cannot go on a rampage destroying cars, indiscriminately attacking civilians, attacking people, shooting at them and throwing stones. But this is just one thing feeding into another, underlining yet again with huge gravity, because innocent civilians are losing lives, innocent civilians are being injured, including children. This underlines yet again the need to restart a meaningful process to find a way out in negotiations. And there the European Union stands ready to support both sides and provide whatever facilitation and assistance is needed.
Thank you. Mose, same topic.
Yes, Peter, thanks. I suppose you're very much right about this vicious circle of violence in the occupied Palestinian territories. But that brings me to the question, because I also read another statement yesterday that High Representative Borrell had visited President Sisi in Cairo. Didn't say very much, was dominated by a big picture of them, but he said they also discussed the situation in Israel and occupied territories. And then the question is, why discuss this? Why not discuss this with both sides, both Israel and the Palestinians, how to bring an end to this? What is holding up his long-awaited, I suppose, or overdue visit to the region, to those concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, Mose. You cannot be in two places in one moment. So High Representative was in Egypt on Sunday and Monday. But if you remember a few weeks ago, he had a meeting with the Israeli foreign minister here in Brussels. So you have a number of ways how to interact with the partners and be present. We have EU Special Representative for Middle Eastern Peace Process, Sven Koopmans, who travels to both sides and to international partners to advance EU's initiatives and activities in this. So we are indeed talking to both sides, but it's difficult to talk to both sides if both sides are not talking to each other. And this is our point, together with the League of Arab States, with our Arab partners, with our US partners, saying to them, no one else will solve the situation for you, only if you start the direct talks, tackling these issues, because the only one who pays the highest price for this are the people on both sides. They are losing their lives, their health, their properties, the perspective for a safe, stable and secure future. So this is what the European Union does, conveys to the partners through the visits of high representatives, through the engagement of EUSR, through the engagement of member states representatives, because this is Team Europe. Of course, we are doing it as European Union and the member states of the EU. So we do it, we reach out to the partners, we encourage them, but there is only as much as you can do as a facilitator and not party of the conflict. And it's for the parties of the conflict to realize that this way, as they see now, leads nowhere. The other way, the alternative, is to try to find a political horizon, political perspective to solve the issue in the name and for the benefit of the people.
Thank you, Peter. Any other questions for Peter? I see one in the room from Nicola and then, one on the chat for Nicola and then it will be for you. Let's get Nicola on the line.
I would like to ask you, are there any news on the Belgrade-Pristina dialogue in Brussels? Is it confirmed yet? And also we know that Kosovo PM said the invitation for the meeting is sent for tomorrow. He mentioned Friday as well. So can you tell us finally what date they are called to Brussels? Did that deadline expire? What are the expectations? What can happen in the next few days? And what can EU do to ease the situation if the leaders don't appear in Brussels? Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. On the second part of your question, enough has been said. We said a lot about our expectations, about possible consequences and the follow-ups. The main thing is now to have the meeting in Brussels, and here I have no news. I am not in a position to confirm any date yet, but, well, it's Wednesday until the end of the week. We have still a few days, but right now I cannot confirm any date, any time yet.
Thank you. Yes, no, it was the same, so no other questions. Augustin, though, wants to ask a question. Let's take that.
Yes, thank you. Peter, there are ideas that they come to Brussels and each of them meets separately High Representative Borrell, but they don't meet each other. Would you be satisfied with this option?
Thank you, Augustin. Bottom line for us is that High Representative invited both leaders, Prime Minister Kurti and President Vučić, to come to Brussels towards the end of this week. We are waiting and we are expecting and we are hoping that we will be able to announce day and time of that meeting, and then we can discuss also modalities. But main thing is to have a date and to have a time for the meeting to take place, because we don't have time to lose. And now it's time really for action, not for talk and speculations.
All right, thank you, Peter. I think this exhausted the questions for Peter today. So thank you. And I am changing subjects, and I will give to Lorenzo the floor to open a new chapter for another spokesperson. Go ahead.
Energy. It's about the council on Monday in Luxembourg and the results on the electricity market reform. The main sticking point was how to use the contracts for difference. I know it's a technical issue, but it's very important to understand what the positions are. Because can you please clarify? I think it's Tim. What the Commission has proposed with contracts for difference. I know it, but of course it's important to understand what the departure point is and what are the different demands by the Council that are now in discussion in the Coreper in order to find a common ground. So what is the point with contracts for difference in the electricity market, which was the main point of the reform, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorenzo. I mean, we clearly, and Tim will gladly do so, explain what we put on the table in our proposal. It would be less appropriate for us to comment and to try to interpret member states' positions as expressed in the Council. But Tim, go ahead on our proposal.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. And as Dana says, I really can't go into much detail at this stage, Lorenzo. As you know, there's a negotiation which is ongoing. It was something that the ministers discussed at their level on Monday, and they managed to provisionally agree on 2 of the 3 legal proposals that are on the table. And the Swedish presidency has expressed their hope that they can finish the work at technical level before the end of their presidency, so before the end of this month. As you said, there's a discussion going on in Coreper, so at ambassadors level today. I think more generally, as you say, the contracts for difference is one of the important elements that we put in our proposals when we proposed the reform of the electricity market design earlier this year. And this is about incentivizing public investment in renewables, long-term investments, and making sure that costs are structured in a way where if revenues are above expectation, member states can channel the excess or higher than expected profits to the most vulnerable citizens and those that need most help with their bills. And that if prices fall below the expectations, and that there is compensation which goes to the providers. So, that alongside the power purchase agreements, which is more of a corporate relationship between big end users and energy generators. These are tools that we're trying to facilitate to encourage the market to adopt. And it's about getting the money flowing, the large amounts of money that need to flow towards investments in renewable electricity, creates stable prices, it reduces our dependency on volatile fossil fuel prices. But yeah, we are in the middle of a negotiation, so I'm not going to go into who's pushing for what at this stage. And the Commission, as always, plays its role as an honest broker in those talks. Bear in mind, this is also the Council position. We then need to go into talks with Parliament, so a little bit premature to say who wants what and what that means.
Thank you. Lorenzo has a follow-up.
Yes, I wouldn't ask to tell us which member states are supporting what, but I understand that the issue is about the control the member states have on who is going to benefit from the money that is when there is an excess of revenue. So the groups that are and the obligatory nature of this choice, if it is obligatory or member states can choose. And so can you remind us what is the Commission proposal on this? I mean, do member states have the possibility to choose who targets when they have this revenue that is given by the utilities, the electricity providers, and how does it work in the Commission proposal, I'm saying, because that's what I understand that is the point. Thanks.
Yeah, again, very technical, and I don't have the legal text of our proposal in front of my eyes now. So let's have this conversation bilaterally, and I can point you to the language that we recommended, that we proposed.
Thank you very much. Tom, is it about the same subject? Go ahead.
Tim, could you just recall us whether the proposal of the Commission meant that the contracts for differences are also applied for existing power stations or only for new investment?
Again, Tom, I would need to double-check the proposals that we put on the table. Let's do that bilaterally. That's okay.
Very good. Thank you so much for this. I guess this closes the questions for Tim. And I can now open the floor to colleagues for other questions. Yes, I see Bogdan has a question. Is it for Tim, Bogdan? Can you go ahead? No, it's not for Tim. So in this case, I will go back to the room. Indeed, that was the plan. Go ahead.
Merci beaucoup. J'ai une question pour Balázs sur...
Thank you. I have a question for Balázs on Switzerland. Do you think that negotiations can begin before the Swiss elections? That is, negotiations between Switzerland and the European Union. Is that realistic? Thank you. Thank you for the question. Balázs, please.
Oui, bonjour. Donc, de manière...
Yes. Good afternoon. Well, what I can say is that we're very determined to improve and deepen relations between the European Union and Switzerland. That's been our ambition for some time. Now, as you know, what's important for us is to ensure equal rights when it comes to free movement of people between Switzerland and the European Union. And it's also important to ensure that competitive conditions are equal between EU companies and Swiss companies. And that's important for the single market. Now, concerning your question specifically, we think it's very important to have a timetable to speed up exploratory talks so that we can complete the negotiations during the current government's term. Andreas, do you have a follow-up question? Yes, thank you very much. Is it realistic to conclude these negotiations before the summer, before the 24th, as Maros Sefcovic has said? Well, what I can say is that we'll do our best to make progress. We have to work within the framework of these exploratory talks so that we can at least attempt to start the negotiations on time so that we can finish this work before the end of the current government's term. We'll do our best. Thank you. And we remain determined. Go ahead, please.
C'est sur le même sujet.
On the same subject, when the Vice President of the Commission went to Switzerland, he discussed with the social partners the possibility of a non-regression clause on protection of wages. Can we look forward to a specific proposal? And is there already a text that the Commission has prepared that explains this clause? Well, we have to look at this from a different standpoint. Yes, Vice President Sefcovic was in Switzerland in March, and he had a meeting with the social partners. He didn't make a proposal. What he did was to listen to the viewpoint of the Swiss social partners. And the proposal has to come from the Federal Council. And we understood that during the month of May, the Federal Council had talks with the social partners, so we're waiting for a proposal from them. Thank you. Any other Switzerland questions? Alain?
Just to clarify, because it's not what we are getting on our side. So you're saying the Commission is not going to make a proposal. That's not on the cards. You're waiting for a proposal from the Swiss authorities. Is that it? Yes, that's the general principle in the exchange process. It's for them to make proposals to explain how they intend to deal with structural issues. We've already found solutions to a number of points as part of our old agreement, which the Swiss authorities then withdrew from. So generally, we need to hear from the Swiss side what their position is, what the structural problems are, and what their concerns might be. Thank you, Balázs. I don't see anybody else asking. Oh, yes, over there, Marco.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marco Brasolin, La Stampa. The question on MFF review, sorry, I was not able to ask this question yesterday. Yesterday, you asked member states to fill the gap with the increased contribution of 66 billion euro. Under RRF, there are still around 80 billion of loans not requested by member states. I know that the member states have the possibility to ask for these loans until the end of August, but they already flagged their interest or not in these loans to the Commission. So according to the Commissioner Gentiloni and Vice President Dombrovskis, there are still 80 billion euros of loans available. My question is, could these 80 billions be used to fill the gap of the MFF from a legal point of view? And if yes, was this option considered by the Commission while doing this review? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that here, Marco, you bring several things together, all very important, but which happen on separate tracks. So first of all, I think that we had our members of college explain yesterday the rationale for our proposal for the midterm review, for the needs that we see now, midterm, through the multi-annual financial framework and basically the justification of the needs that we see in relation to competitiveness with the change landscape that you have, in relation to Ukraine, obviously, which is a very, very clear case in point, and which has basically requested a rethink of the needs and of the financial means that we need to have in order to support this important partner. Now, separately, of course, you have the situation of the Next Generation EU, where we are talking about loans for a very specific purpose, defined in the legal basis of Next Generation EU to cover certain needs linked to the resilience and the reconstruction of the economy. So there are two. I believe that you need to see the parallel needs that we have and the parallel ways that we need to develop to cover those needs. And we are talking about grants for Ukraine, for instance. Obviously, for that you would need a mechanism in the EU budget that is different from the loans under Next Generation EU that you referred to. So obviously, all those things are on the table, but I would invite you not to see a total congruence between available loans under Next Gen EU on one side and the needs of the European Union to cover its pressing and urgent sort of priorities due to a changed landscape in the past years. Marco, you have a follow-up.
Yes, just a clarification. So, from a legal point of view, would not be possible to use this money for the purpose of the MFF reviewed?
I think Balázs can tell you what the purpose of the MFF review is and basically what, therefore, legally is necessary in order to generate the extra resources.
Indeed. So if you look at the figures from yesterday, then we see that actually the MFF review involves 99 billion euro of top-up. 66 billion would have to come from the own resources of the EU budget and 33 from debt issuance. So when I look at this list, the RRF is at the moment not considered to be one of the elements.
Thank you. All right, I think we exhausted this subject, unless David wants to ask about this. Go ahead, then.
Yes, thank you, Dana. In fact, the question is more for you, because it's on the European Sovereignty Fund and yesterday proposal. The European Sovereignty Fund was announced by President von der Leyen in her speech on the State of the Union in September 2022, with the reasoning improving European sovereignty. Then President von der Leyen in December in front of the Parliament announced that she would have proposed this fund with the MFF review as an instrument to help member states facing budget restraints and wanting to use fund to respond to the Biden administration IRA. And the European Council discussed it at least in March, maybe also I have the conclusion of March, and the European Sovereignty Fund is mentioned in the conclusion. So why she has not delivered on this issue? Because, I mean, it's quite clear that STEP is not the European Sovereignty Fund, Sovereignty Seal is not a fund, and Sovereignty Portal is not a fund. So why she choose to leave this project aside? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, David. So you are absolutely right to point out that the President referred to the need to create a sovereignty fund. Basically, she identified the need for such funding for projects in the member states where they would feel that it's necessary to reinforce certain aspects which are linked to our economic sovereignty in crucial areas such as chips or clean tech, because these are the areas that we most often refer to as being likely focuses for the projects that we have in view. Indeed, we were very glad to say that in institutional discussions, the European Council found the ideas proposed by the President important, and they received their political backing. Yesterday, we have explained the approach that we have in relation to the funding of these needs. Now you can discuss acronyms, or you can discuss the names that is given to a funding mechanism or not. You know very well how STEP would be funded. You know very well what would the role of the seal in terms of channeling money from sources where projects of such strategic importance are lacking, in order to match existing funding in part with the needs that we have identified. So this is just about the way to fund this mechanism. But Balázs can provide more additional information on this.
I fully take your point, David, but maybe a couple of technical points as well. So, European Sovereign Instrument, it contains the word instrument, and according to our estimates, it can take up to 18 months to establish an instrument. So, going for the approach that we opted for yesterday can basically result in gaining time. That's one. Then also we have a number of instruments here that we can bring together and ensure a more effective and more efficient use of existing resources, and the sovereignty portal that you referred to brings together all the funding opportunities and makes it easier for project promoters to identify possible sources of funding. And I think it's worth recalling what Commissioner Hahn said yesterday. So STEP is a step in the right direction. So it's just a step, but the work will of course continue.
Yeah. David, you have a follow-up question?
Yes, thank you, Dana. Just two clarification. I mean, I'm quite sure that you already knew in December that it would have taken 18 months to establish an instrument, a financial instrument. So why the President has promised a fund in December for the reaction to the IRA, even if it would have been taken 18 months? The IRA is now, it's not in 18 months. Second point, I mean, STEP is not a fund. The President announced a fund, a financial instrument. Why she decided not to propose it? I understand the reasoning behind, but did she encounter some resistance from some member states. So she just concluded that it was not possible to go that way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there are two points to make, David, in addition to what we said so far. First of all, let's not get lost in synonyms. We are talking about a fund. You are asking questions about the way this fund will be fed with sources of financing from various aspects. I think this is where your question comes from. Because whether you call it fund, whether you call it instrument, or whether you call it a new financial program, these are different things. So this is my answer, David. I finish, and then you can give me your reply, which I would be very happy to hear. So first of all, there may be a misunderstanding at the level of terminology that we are using. Secondly, I think that the President explained pretty clearly at the beginning of a press point yesterday the rationale and the conditions for our proposal for the midterm review. What context we take into account, which is on one hand the context of the needs, and on the other hand there is the context of realities in the member states. Indeed, there has been a discussion about this specific sovereignty fund or instrument that we put on the table as a first step yesterday. There was agreement about going in that direction, and this is what the Commission put on the table at this stage, making a political judgment of what is needed and what the possibilities are to proceed quickly with unblocking funds for a need which was identified by everybody as being real and being pressing. And we have put on the table a mechanism which would enable us to channel rapidly funding sources for projects in these areas which have identified together at the EU level as being priorities. Yes,
and just a clarification, David. So when I say up to 18 months, I didn't refer to the preparation of the proposal, but the whole process, so adoption by the Parliament and the Council. That can take up to 18 months when it comes to an instrument, just to be precise.
Mm-hmm. David, go ahead.
Dana, a fund is not a portal or a seal. As Orwell said, peace is war. And when peace is war, you are making propaganda. So we are talking about different things. This is not a fund. Apologies. You can... Okay. Finished.
Thank you, David. Any other questions about this subject? Lorenzo.
Yes, it's just to clarify, because when this was proposed by von der Leyen, there was a discussion about the fact that we needed a fund financed. This was not what everybody thought, but the idea was a fund financed with emission of debt. Not everybody agreed with this, but this was one of the ideas. The IRA in the US is financed with emission of debt. And this was a response to the IRA. So it's clear that at the beginning, when it was proposed, it was seen as a sort of initiative mirroring the IRA with the European characteristics, etc. Then there was a discussion, and the discussion was clearly indicating that some member states were against new emission of debt. This was much clearer in the following months. And then it was abandoned, the idea of emission of debt. But there was still the idea of fund. Now there's not even the idea of fund anymore. I mean, you must admit that the fact that it disappeared like that, just the day when there was the MFF revision, when the President had said that he was going to be there with the revision of MFF, it's a little bit strange. And I don't think that the explanation that you and the Commissioner gave yesterday are sufficient to understand why it has totally disappeared from the horizon. Has it totally disappeared from the horizon? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will give Balázs the floor in a minute, but just to clarify that you basically, Lorenzo, explained to us all the options that were circulating in the public domain and in debates about the possible ways of funding a sovereignty fund, which the President mentioned in her State of the Union speech. But the Commission has never come out with an explanation of a funding mechanism until it has put on the table a step yesterday. So this is the way that we believe is the appropriate one at this point in time to fund the needs that we have identified as real and on which we converge with the Member States. And all the rest, what you described, were indeed part of the public debate in relation to this.
Yeah, and if I may add, there's also fresh funding proposed in the context of the MFF review with regard to the STEP initiative. It's 10 billion euros. So, for example, we are topping up 4 programs which come under STEP. So we are proposing to put 3 billion into Invest EU, 0.3 billion into Horizon Europe, 5 billion into the Innovation Fund, and 5.1 billion into the EDF. So there's a fresh funding component as well. And as we said, it's a step in the right direction.
And the idea, as we have explained at length yesterday, including in the technical briefing, which I trust you have all followed as well, is to use this limited reinforcement of 10 billion euros for these funds to leverage much more money by using other existing sources which can come together in order to create a bigger leverage effect in order to fund these needs that we have identified. But indeed, these are things which we have explained at length yesterday.
If I may, a last figure for you, Lorenzo, if you can still keep up with us. So the 10 billion is expected to leverage over 110 billion in additional investment. So that would be the additional impact here.
Indeed. Tom, one last question about this.
2 questions, if I may. First, if you say the financial needs, everybody agrees we have. Who's everybody? Is it the Commission or the Member States? Who's anybody? And the second question, so to make a long story short, there will be no sovereign fund. Is this right?
Thank you so much. I think that you clearly understood where we are coming from. And you clearly understood that what we put yesterday on the table, based on a limited proposal to generate fresh funding by topping up certain programs and by leveraging from those more than 10 billion euros up to 160 billion euros for STEP, is our proposal to fund the needs that we have identified as being necessary at the EU level. And what you said in your first question is, what I said was that we identified together, we agreed that we have certain needs to fund in relation to clean tech, in relation to chips. So this is where the agreement was at the EU level in general, because we mentioned the European Council discussing the needs to invest in clean tech. We had discussions over the last 6 months, actually since last SOTEU, at repeated European Councils about the need to increase our competitiveness and to invest together to increase our competitiveness in clean tech. We had identified needs in the digital areas where we need to increase our competitiveness edge with the CHIPS Act and the funding that we have generated for that. So that is the we, is the collective European we, Tom. Any other questions about this? Lorenzo, go ahead.
Yes, you not mentioned it, but yesterday it was clear that among the different areas that are considered as priority, there's also biotechnology. It's the first time, yesterday was the first time I heard this. When was this included? I mean, we know clean tech, we know digital, we know chips, But when was biotechnology included among these priorities? Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lorenzo. If I look, if my memory helps me, in the communication on competitiveness linked to long-term competitiveness linked to the which was proposed at the same time as the communication on the single market, we had identified biotech as being a very important area which is important for our competitiveness. This was adopted, I believe, at the end of February or at the beginning of March. But indeed, biotech was identified as an area which is important for our European long-term competitiveness. All right, any other questions? Yes, Tommaso Garavotti. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, many thanks for the floor. Tommaso Garavotti, the Council. It's just a question on competition, if I may, because there's a judge in Rome, Claudio Cotatellucci, who recently ruled that there is indeed business continuity among ITA and Alitalia, because he ordered ITA to rehire 77 people who were declared redundant by the company. There are thousands of former employees of Alitalia who are thinking to sue the company. I've been told that Lufthansa is quite worried about these developments, given that the assumption of the business discontinuity among ITA and Alitalia was the basis of your decision on the company. I wonder if you have anything to say on this ruling. Thank you.
Thank you, Arianna.
Good morning, Tommaso. Thanks for the question. I have to say we have no specific comment. As you were mentioning, on 10 September 2021, we have found that based on Italy's plan for the new air carrier Italia Trasporto Aereo, ITA, that Italy had established in 2020, and the conditions under which certain assets would be transferred from Alitalia to ITA, there was economic discontinuity between the two companies. In general, it is the responsibility of member states to ensure compliance with Commission decisions, including the one I mentioned. When it comes to national court proceedings more generally, national courts may seek guidance on the application of state aid rules in the Commission decision-making process, and the Commission notices and guidelines concerning the application of state aid rules, of course. Based on the principle of mutual cooperation, national courts can also ask the Commission for assistance.
Thank you. Any other questions about this? David.
Yes, thank you. Arianna, you said that the Italian authorities should apply your decision, but the fact is that a court is saying the opposite of what you said. So they are saying there was business continuity. They have established through documents, legal documents, that the existence of the transfer of company branch. So basically, they are saying you are not right. So who should apply what? Because this is a judgment by a court with some documents, and how the Italian authorities should apply your decision instead of the national court. Thank you.
Thanks. As I said, it is for the Italian authorities to find a way to ensure compliance with our decision-making. Of course, I cannot prejudge what the Italian authorities will do in this moment. It's a court of first instance, I believe, that has taken this decision. I don't want to prejudge future processes at possible national level. And as I said, there are ways in which national courts can reach out to us if they so wish, either on the guidance on the application of decisions and guidelines, or even specifically on cases if they so wish. So this is as far as I can go for the time being.
David, you have another follow-up?
So if a national court says that there is business continuity, you will not change your judgment. Is it clear? Even if there is a secret document or something like that that prove that there was continuity.
Look, David, I'm afraid I cannot comment on the specifics of the case. As you can imagine, I have not followed it in detail, but we have a decision that is legally valid, that stands. It's a decision we took, and it is enforced. So, of course, it is the decision that the national authorities need to follow.
Right, thank you so much. Any other questions for Ariana? I don't see that, so I'm inviting other questions on other subjects. Yes, Bogdan, go ahead. Do we have Bogdan on the line? You just need to press speak, I'm told, and then it could work. No, we cannot have him, so let's then try to take Gabriela. Oh yes, there he is, Bogdan. Let's see if it works now. Well, I can hear that you speak, but I cannot hear you. Okay, let's take Gabriela. Perhaps in the meantime, Bogdan sorts out his mic source.
Thank you. I'm Gabriela Belichowska from Euronews, and I would like to ask about the next European Commissioner from Bulgaria after the resignation of Maria Gabriel. So now, as we officially know the names of the two candidates, Daniel Laurer and Iliana Ivanova, were these names discussed during the meeting between Maria Gabriel and President von der Leyen on Monday? And are they both eligible for the position regarding the Commission's expectation for a female candidate? And if possible, I think I would also have a follow-up question. Thank you.
Thank you. So you already know that you have a follow-up without knowing what I'm going to answer you. But anyway, I'll give it a try, and I will be very happy to give you the possibility to ask a follow-up question. So, Gabriela, look, on this one, we have indeed seen in the news that political leaders in Bulgaria mentioned two names of possible commissioner designates. Until we started this midday briefing, we have not received a formal notification from Bulgaria regarding the nomination of the personalities that you mentioned. So I cannot confirm to you that we have received anything officially from the Bulgarian authorities. So no formal nomination. With regards to what we expect, I think that you already discussed last week about the fact that the president, in similar cases in the past, indeed sent a letter to the Bulgarian authorities inviting the government to put forward two names. As you know, the conditions are those set in the treaty as to the profile and the competences necessary for the personalities to play this role as commissioners. And now we expect to have the two names put formally to us, and the process will be like always. The person that fits best the requirements for the job will then go through the process. And now your follow-up question, Gabriela, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So, meanwhile, what his or her responsibilities in the European Commission will be? Do you have any information about this already? And eventually, when the interviews with the candidates and President von der Leyen are going to take place?
Thank you so much for the question. So first of all, as I said, we don't have yet nomination of commissioner designates for this post. Of course, once we have, the process will continue, and that will indeed, as you say, include a discussion with the president. I cannot tell you anything about any portfolio for the next Bulgarian commissioner. This will be seen at a later stage. Once, of course, we also see what competencies and strengths the person would bring to our College of Commissioners. Any other questions about this? I don't see any, but I see that Bogdan will still want to try to ask a question, so we can try to give him the floor once more. And if it doesn't work, then you can call us bilaterally to ask.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now it works.
Okay. Bogdan Sopescu, Radio Romania. On agriculture, if I may, it's a huge delay in delivering the second package for Romania, Poland, and so on. On the other hand, we have a third package announced by the Commission. Now, those two packages are now linked somehow. Is there any deadline for example, for delivering the second package?
Much for the question, Bogdan, and Miriam is here to provide you an answer.
Thank you very much. So, as I have said in several occasions, we are in discussions with the member states concerned, the 5 neighboring countries, and particularly those that still have in place some restrictions, be it de jure or be it de facto. So until this is not sorted out, we cannot put the second package to vote. But we are hopeful that things are moving in the right direction. We have put in place a joint coordination platform to discuss precisely how to facilitate the two-way trade of imports and exports from Ukraine into the neighboring member states and to ensure that this is going where it needs to go. So in this context, we have had already 2 meetings at technical level where we have been constructively engaging with all sides, the 5 member states concerned, also Ukraine representatives and the European Commission. In this respect, we have also discussed how to improve technical assistance to really help all these bottlenecks, logistical bottlenecks, that have been hindering the imports from Ukraine. So we are hopeful that a solution will be found soon in this sense and that we will continue to engage constructively, and then we can put both packages forward. The second package of support, the 100 million you mentioned, it will already be for the vote because it was presented by the Commission on the 3rd of May. And then the additional funding for covering other crises, other situations such as drought, floods, etc., will be presented by the European Commission and then voted at a later stage.
All right. Any other questions? Yes. Bogdan, you have a follow-up. Go ahead.
Is in the third package?
I'm afraid we missed the beginning of your question, Bogdan, so if you can try to ask.
Can you hear me?
It's all good now. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to know, you're gathering data for the third package. Which are those countries included in the third package?
So this information is still being discussed, so it's not public yet. We are having our external exchanges and monitoring the situation before we can come forward with a proposal where we will explain the amount of the proposal and the member states concerned.
And the criteria and the methodology. All right, thank you so much. I think that concludes the list of questions for us today. Thank you so much for this lively midday briefing, and see you tomorrow.